Olá, boa tarde.
Hello, good afternoon.
Boa tarde.
Hello.
Bem, boa tarde, sejam muito bem-vindos.
Good afternoon and welcome to the House of Insurance, a strategic hub for contact, entrepreneur, and business connection created to foster the role of the insurance sector towards climatic transition. My name is Leila Ponte, and I'm very happy to be here at the Sustainability Forum in Cooperativism and Insurance, hosted by CNseg and OCB, the Organization of Brazilian Cooperatives. The objective here to discuss how cooperativism and the insurance market can work together in the management of climate risks and disasters, promoting economic, social, and productive resilience in rural and agro-industrial areas. I would like to remind all of you that the sessions have simultaneous translation, and the headsets are available near the entrance of the room. Feel free to get them if you require. The complete agenda of the House of Insurance at COP30 can be seen at casadoseguro.org.br or by scanning the QR code that you can see right now on the screen. And for the opening session, I would like to invite Roberto Santos, Chairman of the Board of Directors at CNseg. Please, Roberto. Thank you. Yeah, she told me not to place my hand here on the mic, but so I apologize. I did that at the start. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to host all of you here at Casa do Seguro, House of Insurance. The partnership that we are hosting today is through the Organization of Brazilian Cooperative to discuss the transforming role of insurance and cooperative in building climate resilience. I'd like to thank for the OSB for all the support assured in order to build this forum. CNseg represents the entire insurance sector in the country and has the institutional responsibility of leading the statement and positions of the sector, fostering good practices, develop training and innovation workshops, and also to contribute towards public policies that support the sustainable development. Insurance transforms uncertainty in certainty and allows for high environmental and social investment can happen. Today, insurance is more and more known as a support tool towards climate transition. The recent climatic events has shown the urgency of this agenda. In Brazil, we have registered loss for the private initiative around 327 billion reais. The event, the climatic disaster in the south of Brazil, Rio Grande do Sul, summed 5 billion in indemnizations and also much more in total damage, of which 90% were not insured. This is the portrait of an economy that is still very much reactive, that depends in emergency responses, and that is not as supported in instruments of anticipation and distribution of risks. Only 25% of the Brazilian homes, 7.7% of agricultural land, and 30% of vehicles have some sort of insurance. most of the losses still fall on top of families, producers, and governments. Thinking about the amplification of access of insurance, the role of cooperativism is essential. All the cooperatives are present in all the states, deeply rooted in the life of communities and connected to the reality of agricultural producers, small businesses, local companies, and a high vulnerability territory. This closeness of the cooperative and the unique opportunity to improve the situation in translating the technical language of the insurance has created accessible solutions connected to everyday life. The cooperatives already work in credits, technical assistance, in trading and financial education. The integrations among insurance sector and the cooperative sector is key in this moment in which we need to close the protection gap and strengthen the resilience amidst the climate challenge. The cooperativism and the insurance sector share the common goal of protecting communities and building a fair justice. By uniting capillarity, innovation, we contribute to Brazil in order to become a reference in the two sectors and also in adopting best practices that result through this joint effort. I would like to thank the presence of all of you here once more and the opportunity of welcoming you here at our home of insurance, at the House of Insurance. Enjoy the agenda. Thank you so much.
Agora, não tem jeito. E agora convido para a sua
Now, I would like to
Tânia
invite to stage Tânia Zanella,
OCB e presidente
Superintendent of OCB and President of Instituto Pensar Agropecuária.
O pessoal tá me olhando, ver se eu vou bater aqui, viu, deputada?
People were
Gente, boa tarde.
concerned that I was adjusting the mic too much here as well. So good afternoon, everyone. Hello, everyone. Hello, my colleagues here at CNseg. We're so happy that cooperativism is being represented here, finally formalizing this partnership that began and is definitely going to be lasting for a long, long time. And we are especially happy because this year we have celebrated the acknowledgement from the UN by the International Year of Cooperatives. This was an important moment, not only for the Brazilian cooperatives, because, by the way, here I'm representing almost 27 million of Brazilians that are somewhat involved and participated in our 4,000 cooperatives that work in 8 type of businesses. I don't know if you know, but this partnership, right, Roberto, it has become stronger. When last year, the OCB system, alongside CNseg and other partners, acted because in Brazil, cooperatives were forbidden to operate under the insurance system and model. And in a joint effort, we're able to sensibilize the National Congress, and we started this year with the approval of the president, and we're able to act in the insurance system in Brazil, since in other places of the world, we are big, and I'm sure we're going to be able to change the culture of insurance here in our country as well. And also, I would like to give my special thanks to all our cooperatives that are going to be talking a little bit here on how they work, the insurance model, and how all our cooperatives work as well. We have Copercitos here represented by the president of the board, Mateus, Sicredi, so many different cooperatives that are going to be here sharing, and you will realize how much the cooperative are truly changing the life of the Brazilians and how much we wish to go even further. And with the help and partnerships such as we have with CNseg, I have no doubt that we will get there. However, we also know that the challenges are great, and they will demand, beyond this alignment and building joint efforts that we have done, a lot more courage to face what's to come. And I can definitely say here at the House of Insurance that insurance, especially agricultural insurance, is a model, a public policy that deserves more discussion and a better restructure of the process. And that's why not only inside the OSB, but also inside the Instituto Pensar Agro, this subject of agricultural insurance is one of our priorities, President Roberto. Not only in the project of the Councilwoman Teresa Cristina, but also in different work fronts. We have the urgency and the necessity to think with care and strategically, because we know, just like we were talking before, that the climate events are more and more present and more extreme. So we need to be able to provide legal safety to our agricultural producers that are exposed, always exposed, and they require more legal protection. So I'd like to tell you that how happy we are to build this together alongside your teams, this event that I'm sure will bring the importance of this partnership and the promising future of this insurance model in our country. I wish you all a great event. Thank you. Thank you, Tanya. So the first panel in this afternoon is called Rural Insurance and Cooperativism, Protecting the Future of Food. It will be a discussion on how rural insurance and cooperativism can serve as key instruments for managing climate and economic risks in the agri-food sector, contributing to producers' resilience, production stability, and food security, especially in developing and emerging countries. To kickstart our panel, I'd like to invite Matheus Marino, Chairman of the Board of Directors of Copercitus. Please, Matheus. Leonardo Botelho, Investors Affairs at BNDES. Fernando Monteiro from the Republicanos Political Party from Pernambuco. Andrés Elola, President of ICMIF Americas. And Cláudia Mafia, Institutional Relations Manager of the OCB system. Cláudia, the floor is yours. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Great to see you all here. And thank you, by the way, President, for inviting us here, Mr. Santos. The partnership has truly been amazing. It's been over 10 years in building this bill, and now we certainly have a long future ahead of us. This is a partnership that will make us to have more and more cooperative acting in the insurance sector, thus contributing to a sector that has been brilliantly led by you and CNseg. And here we have a great and important panel ahead of us. As Tanya was saying about the importance of us discussing agro-insurance in Brazil, this is an issue that is very much real. It's a central subject. It's a subject that now depends on a public policy, and it requires debate. So we are inserted in a very complex context in that the 2030 agenda to talk about food safety is very important. And Brazil is key in allowing for insurance and agri-food sector to survive in the next years, of course. And it's impossible to do that. We're looking at the challenges and the complexities that we have, despite this being an activity that demands a special outlook. And the agriculture and the farms producers, they are open and they are very much susceptible to climate risks. So having that type of debate here at COP30, this is even more important, especially when you're discussing a climatic event and challenge agenda, and we have a very important role. I think we're just talking about how great this first week was at COP, a COP of implementation, to talk about what Brazil already does. That we have a agricultural livestock production that is very technological with a lot of investment behind it, with a very robust environmental policies, but they still have a lot of challenges. So now more than ever, we need to still discuss what's going on in the Congress, on how we can bring robustness to the public policies of the rural sector. So, without further ado, to start this debate that's going to be great, I'd like to thank all of you here, our panelists, our guests, and I'd like to first start Andres, the representative at ICMF Americas. Like Tanya said, we spent many years to finally be where we are right now in bringing cooperatives closer to us. And when you look abroad, like Uruguay, Argentina, and in Europe, it's not different in Canada or in the US either. We see how much cooperativism is a fundamental agent and a stakeholder for the development of this sector. So Andres is going to tell us a bit more how they have been dealing with these challenges, especially in the rural insurance, and how the cooperatives have been key in the strategy that we have in other countries. So thank you, Andres, for being here. The floor is yours. First of all, thank you for inviting me. This is the first time here that I'm talking about cooperative insurance. I started talking about this 10 years ago, and OCB also invited us. And having this alliance, this ICMF alliance, is a global alliance with a local reach. We represent a local organization. We have been part of this to have more experience. So thank you, by the way, for inviting me here once again. I'd like to tell you that I have asked myself a lot of times, why is the cooperative so successful in terms of rural insurance and insurance as a whole, especially rural? And I would like to say something here that made me think like this. And in respect of the time, I will try to be here to stay to be as brief as possible. I believe the insurance is good for cooperativism. Insurance and cooperative shares values, share similar purposes, and that doesn't happen in all the activities. In some areas it happens more, in others less, but in particular is a aid that goes both ways. Risk dispersion is also important, and to assure a economic capacity. And here there's a little bit of the principles and goals of the organization. And we need to maintain some level of practices. Cooperative by itself already has that concern, and insurance is also a tool that for the cooperative is ideal. And where we see that, well, we can see that when this problem starts happening, and cooperative and the government and the cooperative government has a matrix of values that for insurance is really interesting. I was very surprised with the data that was shared by Roberto in terms of damages. In Rio Grande do Sul, for example, the floods in Porto Alegre, we know because we are very close to them. There's clearly a lot to be done in terms of insurance in general, but in particular rural insurance. And I'd like to leave this first concept. The alliance regulates almost 26% of the offer of insurance around the world. And here in America, especially in Brazil, when imagine and others, in particular the rural insurances, is a sophisticated industry because it's set amidst risks. The risks is not because the climate is changing, it's because the insured assets are larger and larger. There are more and more producers that need to be kilos available in order to pay for their costs. If you have an idea, Dubai, a rice hectare requires a $200,000 investment, and a soy hectare requires an investment of $800. So you see, it's not enough to get 300 kilos of soy. Today we need 2,500 kilos of soy to pay for the investment. That requires technology, knowledge, everything behind soy. So there's a lot involved in which the agricultural insurance demands a high level of sophistication that allows taking into consideration climate change, and also knowing that what we have right now available, and we are dealing with people's food. Latin America, there's a lot to say about this when it comes to sustainability in food. It's a responsibility that goes both ways. Cooperative goes hand in hand with insurance, and the other concept is that insurance is a sophisticated tool of which you need to maintain an alliance with the academy because the academy helps us improve the pricing, improving the underwriting, the parametrics. But all the issues are there, are near us, are close. We need to create tools for it. The cooperative insurance needs to take into account the challenges and remember that it's dealing with people's futures. And it has in its hand people's foods. And it's also holding the power of keeping companies working. And therefore, cooperativeness is great because we were created to help our peers. The insurance industry also has a vision of the cooperativism, and it's natural that we think that if the insurance is a tool to level cycles, insurance needs to be part when the problem has arrived. It needs to be able to recover when the problems are there. So that's why this vision needs to come from the governance. If we have everything clear, it's possible to offer a diversified offer that supports the demand. Like we said, Brazil has still a lot to do. The insurance sector has a very key part of it. The insurance companies need to be part of it. The cooperatives also have and should have a participating role because we are organizations, like I said, of a global reach, but also with a local presence. We are near the communities. We understand the micro reality of every single party and part of our territory. The third component that I could tell you that I've read about the text that I've read is that I don't see that there is a type of correction between standardized insurance and personalized insurances. Most likely through a standardized insurance, we normalize the risks in at larger surfaces. In Uruguay, for example, we say that we ended up drowning at lower scales without having a good coverages. So we need to have averages and combine coverages with nominated risk. For example, nominated risk would be going to the producer's home or the producer developing their own type of necessity and coverage because they are the ones who know about their own reality, about the crops, the climate. The producer should be the first one that should know how to tell us about the batches and all of that. So the personalized and customized insurance and nominated insurance basically will be tools to grant an additional coverage. It's not the same coverage that we have at a vale, at a valley, or near the mountains. The crops and the harvest might be undergoing different moments, and then the necessities are different because if there's sometimes it rains in different areas when it does in the others. So the agriculture insurance, it's important to keep the producing working, their harvest working, and the abilities to be able to grant them a total indemnization. And for soil, like I said, I mentioned the values before. So I believe that we need to work with normalized insurance and standardized insurance that could eventually deal with larger surfaces and deal with the risk alongside the natural market. The market of risk transference, insurance is the first place, but it's possible to create and capture investments that take part of the risk, but they cannot reach all of the risk because if you're talking about zones with an insurance of $800 or $1,000, there's still a lot to come to keep the producer working. So I believe there's still a lot to study, a lot to do. That's our experience in Uruguay. We have seen bigger climatic events, severe events. We're always asking ourselves if we were up to par in terms of insurance. And we visit the producer after these climatic events happen. We ask them if we are doing what it needs to be done, if there's more to be done. So the rural producer will undergo an issue, be it a cooperative producer or not, because everybody suffers the same. But what we need to realize that the small producer, the producer with not enough resource, needs to have the ability of moving forward because he needs to be able to maintain himself and his production. We depend on him. The success of this insurance system is to be able to the producer to continue to work. Otherwise, the insurance has no value, right? So we need to help the system to work, and we need to make sure that the vehicles are insured and to make sure to help them when the problem happens. We have laws, and the Uruguay has different the subsidies shouldn't create the type of practices. But it's also good. It's not good that the insurance doesn't have any coverages. And when it comes to education of insurance, that's an integral part of it. The role of the states in Brazil of helping the agriculture and having insurance through subsidies is also an interesting idea. And it's very much clear that the subsidies shouldn't be a reason why the producer will plant. The insurance will work when the probability of something occurring is not present, because if the probability of an event happening is zero, no producer will want to have an insurance, and the probability of something happening is one, then we cannot insure. So it's a it's hard. It shouldn't be like that. We should be able to plant and then have an insurance. And if something happens, we are covered. So when the events are catastrophic and massive, like we have seen other states in Brazil, and we are keeping an eye on what's going on here. We see that the economic capacity are most of the time limited. And then it's necessary to have support tools, because the insurance is a support tool, but the events happen in different parts of the world. Like I said before, the standardized insurances can be better structured and positioned in the capital market, of which the business gain economical capacities that go beyond of a traditional insurance. The state subsidies in keeping the production working is a characteristic of a system that spreads, but also that needs to be clear that it shouldn't be the cause because of somebody else had an insurance, or because somebody produces. The producer needs to do that with good agricultural practices, despite of having insurance or not. The insurance needs to be able to be there to help them, and there should be an end goal, that is to keep the producer going and to keep food on the table. So on that point of view, I'd like to congratulate all of you for what you're doing, the type of project, because in Uruguay this hasn't happened yet. It's not working. So I'm here available to all of you for questions. And lastly, I'd like to say that insurance is a tool that takes us to good agricultural practices. The insurance helps the rural producers to be awarded the good practices, because by fixing the pricing of insurance demands knowing the crop, the life cycle, the harvest, to be able to know the space in which the producer is planting, knowing the tools, their team, the people who work at the farm. All of that makes pricing and the underwriting of the insurance to work or not, in a way that the insurance and the cooperative insurance, we are closer of the producer, right? So if we do that well, that can help the producer to have good agricultural practices. And sometimes we cover what shouldn't be covered because we are competing, and the insurance has the issue, or competing for customers. And sometimes what I'm saying is not always a reality, but when insurance works, it's good for the producer, right? And our biggest win would be keeping the producer working all the time, so he can recover his production losses, to be able for him to keep working, and through that, the knowledge that the producer maintains working. Thank you so much.
So I think there are so many important things, and we're very excited about advancing with cooperativism, and we're talking about a capacity of being in municipalities, and we're not present, other institutions, and paying attention to this product, to the needs of the product. So when we look at credit, we also have participation in the panel. We're going to talk about the presence as the only financial institute for credit, but there are many municipalities in Brazil, and in general, they're small. So this capillarity tends to definitely help the situation. If we think about culture and how do we use cooperativism. So we're going to hear Mateus Marino, who is from the board of COP30, because when we look at there, Mateus, we know how many agricultural cooperatives they actually work with this kind of insurance for agriculture, and we have to think about the technical issues. So definitely, I think you're going to talk about this, right? About these cooperatives. Thank you for your participation, and the floor is yours. Thank you, Clara. Congratulations on your initiative. And OCD, CNseg, bringing this to COP is extremely relevant. So I'm here. I am a farmer with a cooperative. I'm president of the board of administration nowadays. And the objective of our cooperative is to help the farmer in his daily life and whatever he needs. And when I talk about what he needs to produce with technology, with tractors, with planting systems, fertilizers, pesticides, technical assistance, drones, everything that he needs for his daily life, but also to help him in the economy of his business, in the management of risk in his business. Because many times we understand that the risk of the agricultural activity is according to the capacity of having the right genetics, the right seed, the right management, and the culture, everything that we use in the agricultural issues. But if we don't go into the finances, he does not have a positive outcome. So in our cooperative, we work in 4 states in Brazil, and we have 70 physical units and municipalities, distinct municipalities. São Paulo, Minas, Goiás, Mato Grosso. We have revenues of 9.5 billion with these farmers and 41,000 associates. 97% of these associates are small farmers. We are a large cooperative that represents small farmers, that provides a competitive advantage for these small farmers. And we are in the day-to-day activity of our 41,000 producers with a technical team talking about pesticides and seeds, providing technical assistance, putting satellite imaging and drones. And 4 years ago, we structured our insurance company. So for us, it is still small, but it's been growing at a rate above 35, 45% a year. It's a business that reduces the risk a lot, that has a positive impact on our associate, because just the way that we are inside the associate's business, our technician is there every day in the property, so we know what kind of soil they have, the climate conditions, the technology used, the genetics, the level of preparation and schooling and skills of that cooperative member, and naturally this reduces the risk. And when you associate insurance, and many times we say, oh, so agricultural insurance, he has it's against fire, for example, in our region that has a lot of sugar cane. We have lots of problems with fires. So we have a huge opportunity. And when we look at the farmer, and we need to look at them in an integral fashion, today the farmer, our member, our associate, is not very good at identifying what's good for the business, because there's so much technology being launched, and satellite images and drones and new items and new fertilizers, new seeds. So our team has to help him to choose the technology, and also helping in the economical part. And insurance is very important. And we finance this farmer. Half of what we sell, we give this farmer 10 to 12 months to pay back. And to manage the risk and allow the farmer to be prosperous is extremely important, because when you help that farmer to capitalize better, when you structure something that is part of a hedge, so we can use instruments of future markets and bartering and structured operations. There are many operations we can use, and insurance goes into these operations. And guaranteeing for this farmer, and that's my cost. So when I look at my portfolio, and I have a DECO above 1 billion with a foreign bank, with some green metrics that we have to adopt, this reduced my capture cost, and the whole system gets something in terms of production. So why is the cooperative important? Because it is present inside the associate. So the associate lives in the cooperative. They go there every day. Cooperatives have complete information, and the cooperative influences the decision of the member in structuring operations that are safer for this member. And this cooperative interferes in the life of the member. And for insurance, that's very important. So, coming back to our reality, although we grow, agricultural insurance is 6% of the claims that we issue, whereas the 40% in machines and implements. So today we're one of the biggest sellers of tractors and devices and drones and so on. And since we sell them, we already have a certain level of knowledge and we have an insured portfolio, but we also have insurance for vehicles, for assets, we have health insurance. So it is a full way, a complete way of being close to that member, reducing his risk. And when you make your member prosperous, many times agricultural technologies are already given, but when you come in with this technology that is more for management of risk in the business, you sometimes render a more positive impact on your associate. So he's going to prosper. So I think this is very relevant because everything is being built in Brazil. I had the opportunity of representing the cooperatives in Brazil in several international discussions in terms of the ZI and also in the UN. What calls my attention is, why is this credit and insurance in Brazil, why is that not well developed? We're still regulating the law. We're still in the process of creating. We still depend a lot on the state for regulation as well as for generation of subsidies and subventions and so on. And that provides uncertainties. And on the other hand, everybody knows that it is necessary and it is being built. And to participate in this process is fundamental. A cooperative exists. It's not for economic results. The cooperative is there to help its members in their purpose. And insurance is very important in this process. You cannot have a production cooperative that has everything for a farmer in his activity if they're not able to structure an operation that minimizes the risk or manages the risk. It's never going to be successful. So climatic events will continue to happen. They happen, and we need to structure ourselves to have better protection. And the other important point is that nowadays we cannot dissociate production from protection, environmental protection. So today, the producer that restores a stream or a permanent preservation area, or who does reforestation, today, there is the possibility of providing environmental services, commercializing carbon credits, and issuing titles, but that's only possible if you have insurance that supports that. So producers that have excess preservation area, that want to issue a bond with a certain company, and they're going to have to make sure that it's going to be there for the next 40 years. What about climatic risks involved, fire risks involved? If we don't have instruments that provide this protection, this is going to inhibit this capture. So it is important also when we look at the restoring area in the environment, we have specific instruments that support the issuing of long-term bonds. So I'm talking about 40 years, 20 years, very long term. We need instruments for that. And increasingly, digital technology is here. So digital agriculture is here. We need to use digital agriculture in a safe environment, not only for monitoring with satellite images and everything. We have everything. We have drones for inspection that monitor 5,000 hectares, and they actually look at the speed of the tractor. They monitor that. You get the animals in the pasture 5 times with a drone. So we have to use these technologies to create databases that are more statistical and healthy to reduce the risk, and as a consequence, reduce the cost of our operations. So, for example, the insurance of machines and implements in Brazil, its use has gone down, and it's a huge cost. It's a lot because the level of telemetry and the machines and the control and digital agriculture has gone up. So we need to use these instruments increasingly. Understand that the producer who's using digital technology to manage his business and to conduct his activity is going to have less risk. So he uses satellite images, he uses drone, he uses leading edge genetics and an integrated system with livestock and farming. He has generation of water. Everything is integrated. And when you have that, the risk of the activity goes down. And we increasingly have the way of creating databases. The cooperatives can do that, and they can take this to the insurance area. So cooperatives in Brazil, I see that they are extremely important. 50% of agribusiness in Brazil goes through a cooperative. I thought this number was very important. And last week we were in the UN. In a world, it's 55%. So with 55% of agro in the world goes through a cooperative. In Brazil, it's 50%. So these are very important numbers, and you cannot talk about insurance and agribusiness without talking about a cooperative. Thank you. Thank you, Mateus. It's always an opportunity for us to know the role of cooperatives and the example that is repeated, right, Mateus? There's so many agricultural and livestock cooperatives in Brazil and the difference that they make. Of course, they're going to generate prosperity for the members, right? And safety as well. So going through a safe process. But we look at, a model that is able to generate this development, economic and social development. So when we talk about cooperativism, and in COP, we have to talk about that. We have to talk about it as development. And it's to make it development, we have to definitely use it as a basic tool. So we look at the municipality that has a cooperative and it has a GDP that is 5,000 higher per inhabitant compared to the other municipalities. So that's important. It's an important solution. And we have to think about how to develop it. And it goes through the insurance process, which is what we're doing. And we have partners that are very important. EPS is a very important partner for us. And we already have access to lines like Safra, also in the distribution of the plan, right, in the cooperatives. And I think Leonardo is going to talk about how they are, how they look at this as a tool to be used. Thank you, Clara. I wanted to start, first of all, by thanking. Well, today I have several friends on the stage, and I have the honor of being here in Casa do Seguro from CNseg, led by President Eldete and Diogo, Director Claudia. I have a lot of ex-bosses who worked with me at the BNDES, and you know what it's like. So bosses are still bosses forever, right? They're still asking for things. So I could not refuse this invitation to come here in Casa do Seguro to represent the BNDES, but please feel free, you're still our bosses there. And I would also like to greet OECB, that is a great partner of BNDES, great cooperativism. And in Mateus, we were in Baku talking about this cooperation. Also, Fernando, it was a great partnership. We have several common friends in the bank, and it's an honor to be here. I just wanted to quickly talk about what BNDES has been doing. And I'm going to start with a number. We always put it right at the beginning because many people don't know. In 2024, BNDES approved 360,000 credit operations, more or less. 99% of these operations, more than 99%, went to small and medium-sized companies and rural producers. 99% of the 360 operations. This is data that many people don't know. It's simple, but many people don't know. And I also wanted to say that out of this whole value, half is processed. So the bank approved more than 200 million reais last year, and half of this is through our network of financial agents. So they are cooperatives and banks. And with regard to the cooperatives specifically, this data is even more interesting because less than 10 years ago, the value of the BNDES resources that went through the cooperatives was less than 10% of the total value of the bank. And now in June, we came to 19%. And we're going to reach 20%. And that's why it's important to have the cooperatives in the operations of the BNDES. And the cooperatives are important because the bank, in spite of its relevance, it's a bank that has a strong presence. We're in Brasilia, we're in Rio de Janeiro, we are in a few cities, and the cooperatives are there. They're among the companies that really need economy to happen. And there's no traditional financial institution can get there, but the cooperatives can. So for us, we're very happy to be here in this partnership and discussing these climatic issues. Now, with regard to insurance, I'm going to talk more about that. We're going to talk about the importance of making something happen, the instruments, the regulation, BNDES. I've talked a lot to the insurance companies and the reinsurance companies, and CNseg is definitely in the leadership of all this. So it's a huge space to be able to be in touch with insurance, not only material insurance, but also of personal data, not only the traditional ones, but credit insurance as well, to be able to have recovery and to protect the balance of these financial institutions within this context of the climatic conditions, especially from the central bank. And it's a trend all over the world to make these institutions look at the balance and to prepare inside their balances measures that are able to measure the climatic risks in their operations. So insurance is extremely important, extremely important. I also wanted to say that, just taking advantage of this opportunity, for the operations in small and medium-sized companies that we do through cooperatives, the banks over the last few years, the bank has implemented a public policy focused on the public that is on the other side. So we're talking about reduction of spreads, we're talking about enhancing the terms, and we're trying to find ways of getting resources at a lower cost and with a better final cost. And here at COPI, we announced 21 billion. We signed a contract of 21 billion reais with international organs from Italy, from France, from Germany, and with BID and IBD actually, and with the European Union, and they're placing money here in Brazil through the BNDES to be repassed onto the cooperatives to get to the companies at the edge. So this is very strong. So 21 billion reais. So it shows that this partnership between BNDES and the financial institutions under the leadership of the Ministry of Finance, we have to talk about that. So it's a very important mechanism, it's valued, and they trust that the resources that they place in Brazil will get to the edge with this cooperation between BNDES and the cooperatives. So once again, I just wanted to talk about how happy I am being present here. We're going to talk a little more about the activity of the bank within the climatic changes context and in terms of recovery of damage, which is a concern of everybody who's here today. And let's go to the debate. Thank you. Thank you, Leonardo, and I would like to thank the audience and the BNDES. Definitely has been very important in cooperativism, and we have a public challenge of advancing in the North and the Northeast, especially, so that cooperatives can continue to contribute as it has been doing in the center and south of Brazil. Now, when we talk about, I'm going to give the word to Carlos just to keep the sequence. We have a challenge, a very important challenge, which is public policies. So how can we bring this, because it's a debate It is being debated in the National Congress and the Senate at this moment. How can we talk about rural insurance? So we go through a process that demands public and private sector help. So many of the farmers cannot contribute. They're in the situation, but with this process, there's no guarantee that we're going to have enough to be able to carry out the public policies. So thank you, statesman. So if you could actually tell us about the legislative power, about this very important central public policy for this kind of development in Brazil. So first of all, good afternoon. I would like to thank you and congratulate Roberto, Diogo, because of this very important moment. Every time I go to an insurance event, I start with the same phrase. We need to learn, and it's a very small word. In Brazil, the whole time, we need to combat droughts. So combating this term came in, and it's really a problem. We have to live with a drought. Why do I say that? Because climatic events, you have to learn to live with them, right? And the small word combat that they put in 50 years ago, it took us a long time to be able to live with a semi-arid Northeast. So if I talk about water, if I talk about insurance, I always repeat this word because it is the center. It is where we can start debating any topic. So you talked about the needs, right? So I think it's much more than that, because many times you have financial institutions that are not present. And we have a debate, and it's exactly in this sense. It's about how to live with this. So insurance for me is a complement of the budget, either from a company or the government or people. So everybody has to have insurance because that's part of the economy, of the daily lives in the economy. Those people who live with difficulties, divergences, and rural insurance is extremely important here. First of all, because of production, because of the survival of the ecosystem, and you have to have food safety. So this changes when you have production, when we don't have when we have the climatic problems and we're not able to harvest our culture. So, I always fight, even though I'm in the federal Senate and we have been accompanying this, and I'd like to congratulate Ana Cristina. Her report is brilliant in this manner, and for us to be able to put rural insurance, and it's something that is common in the cooperatives and for all those who need it. But we have some challenges. So the first challenge is structural. It's a challenge that until today, I have 10 years in parliament. I worked in the chamber for 10 years. We were never able to change it. The speed of the law versus the speed of the decree. So many times we go for the approval of the law, and then there's 2, 3, or I don't know if you follow this up, there's the law of the Constitution that has not been regulated yet. So the debate that is urgent, and Casa do Seguro and COP, they bring exactly that. We have to be moving and holding hands, rowing in the same direction, either legislative, executive, or judiciary, and civil society as well. So when we go to the National Congress and we approve a law, we want speed. We want the speed for regulation by the government. So we have a project, we have pillars that work. And first of all, this is the most difficult one. So this has to be executed. And this is a challenge, a huge challenge that we have to have respected. And this is what was approved in the budget. And this basically is not who has more powers, just to provide safety to those who actually make their cost, understanding that insurance for that year in agriculture is that amount. And it's no use putting in values that are not reasonable. So that's one point. The second point is the insurance market. There are so many climatic events that we have ahead of us, unfortunately, and we're only going to see this getting bigger. We still need, that's the second point. We still need, and this is something that I always defend, and I hope that it's the catastrophe insurance. We need to have a fund for catastrophes. And if you watch Global Rural, a program about agriculture on TV, they talked about that. It was what happened in the South. The citizen did not lose he lost his house and the farming land, and he doesn't even know where to start. So he's living with another family as a favor, and he doesn't know what tomorrow is going to be like. So this is what the catastrophe insurance does. It gives agility at that moment. And these two things are important for us to do rural insurance. So rural insurance is together with this. And the third point is that we need to award prizes for those who make insurance. So if you have insurance and when you look at credit with lower interest rates. So this is to encourage not only the producer, but also the insurance company to do that. And the person will be sure that that money is not going to be lost. Because imagine that with the size or the number of climatic events that are coming, imagine that the food from that year is not going to be produced in a sufficient amount. Imagine inflation, price war, a war in the market, and then we need to reduce, the people that come in between. And since we have very little income, the income is very low, it's difficult. So the Congress has been talking about that. And I think that everybody has to have insurance. I think that's extremely important for economy, either from the government or the people or from the companies, because this provides safety that whatever they are proposing is going to be done. So we have been working, and we hope that next year we can actually approve this. I can see that there are people who don't understand because there is a chain. They think that this increases cost. No, this minimizes risks. And insurance companies are very good at looking at risk. And this is in the rural areas as well as in the cities. So we need that. And I would like to congratulate the cooperatives for their work. And I am a member, and the bank that I use is Cressol, right? I am a member. And I see that the work at the edge is important. I don't know how many people know the North and the Northeast very deeply, and they know how difficult it is to be able to do things. So just to conclude, I just wanted to tell a story. I know what a producer is, and I fight a lot for Brazil. So Brazil has 10 million Brazilians without bathrooms, 10 million Brazilians without bathrooms. So this is data that very few people know, but this is data that touches on violence against women. This is data that has to be registered regardless of the subject. This is data that you need to have. But imagine that we have, in terms of water, before we started irrigation with flooding. And then afterwards, this irrigation went through inspection. And now it has a technology and it's more efficient, but it is more expensive, which is the dropping. So that costs less water. But this kind of irrigation needs high precision, high technology, and a lot of training. So many times in insurance, when it's making insurance of this transition, it needs to demand from the one that got the credit that the person needs to know how to use it, because it's not putting a pipe in and allowing water to go through. This kind of thing makes a difference in the insurance market and the cooperative market. It makes a difference to have capacity of making the change, because, as I said, the little word combat led to having the drought the way it is today until we understood that we had to live with it. So I would like to congratulate Againice and to say that we, until the middle of next year, we want to gain or win this battle in the Senate. And then when it comes to the chamber, it's going to be voted very quickly so that then we'll be able to demand that the government will regulate this quickly, because it's not for today, it's not for tomorrow, it's for yesterday. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's always a pleasure to know that we have councilmen that are engaged for fighting for such important subjects. And in this subject specifically, the rural insurance, and you can count on us, CNseg, and all the other institutions who have been doing this work together, because the challenge is tremendous. We will only succeed if we have a joint effort amidst the sectors, cooperatives, and the National Congress. Thank you. And it's important to say that the Council is part of many other topics and projects. There's definitely a lot of challenges in the National Congress, and he is there helping us, and we can definitely count on him. It is always important to say how the rain in Belém is happening right now to remind us the importance of what we're discussing right now, which is climate risk, for activity that's still one of the most important economic activities in the country, that is the agriculture and livestock activity. So the rain came at a good time right now to remind us of the importance of this subject. Now, we'll start our debates. And since our colleague Leonardo from BNDES has a meeting right after our panel here, so because of the rain, it'll be hard to get to the green zone. So I'll start with him so he's free to leave afterwards. So Leonardo, please tell us a little bit about how the BNDES has been able to articulate with the federal and state and municipal governments to support climatic events and crises that we have been experiencing in Brazil, and that it seems that it's going to be only increasing in the future. Thank you, Clara. So when we talk about recovering after climatic disasters, we remember that we have been gaining more experience with that throughout the years. Most recently, well, the bank has been acting with that for decades, but most recently we had episodes that increased the bank's capacity in understanding more and to be able to adjust its action for situations like we had. So we had 2013, the crisis of Teresópolis in Rio. It was, I think, the most lethal tragedy that we have had so far. It was a huge effort with the state government, the city halls that were impacted. The bank went there. We experienced in loco what happened. After that, we had the tragedy of Mariana that also deeply impacted the region of the Rio Doce. And then we had the tragedy at Rio Grande do Sul. And this last one at Rio Grande do Sul, I would like to say that it was a good experience for the bank in the sense of being able to show how the institutions, the local development institutions and the regional ones, can work together with the federal government, the civil house, and the Ministry of Reconstruction. They will be able to offer the guidelines for the act with the National Monetary Council by establishing the conditions of the social fund that were going to be applied for the reconstruction of the Rio Grande do Sul, and with many other entities too, And we did that in a neutral manner. So the Bank of National Development is neutral in articulating the conversation between the federal, state, and city governments. Banks like BNDES around the world are able to participate in this articulation between different agents. We had DataPrev, which helped us map the area that would be covered by the operations. So you see, the articulated manner in acting here has helped us gain more experience in the past decade, I would say, definitely in the past 15 years. So what did the bank do in Rio Grande do Sul? So just so you have an idea, all the operations approved in Rio Grande do Sul in 2024 summed 38 billion reais for the total budget of BNDES, which was 210 billion. Of those 38, 20 were mobilized in the emergency program in Rio Grande do Sul, for Rio Grande do Sul. And how did we do? And what did we do? We basically act in suspending the payment of debts, benefiting 70,000 small and medium companies that had contracts with us. We also opened some other credit lines, extending the deadline for 10 years, 15 years, with less interest rates to help those small and medium businesses recover faster. We also, with our assuring funds, and by the way, that also shows how the bank's action is complementary to the insurance sector. We don't do insurance, and we just do a small effort, but it's a very important effort that we do through the FGEPAC. And the FGEPAC, it's the assuring fund for investment. It's a very important instrument, especially after the pandemic. And we looked abroad, by the way. We had we talked with many other type of BNDES abroad, and we had this proposal in changing the system of the assuring fund and the BNDES in a way that could unlock credit faster during the context of a pandemic. That now has become one of the main activities from BNDES for the small and businesses companies, which represents billions of credits every year. And that's important. And now I'd like to mention about the cooperation with the cooperatives. I must say that without this articulation, this cooperation that BNDES had, we wouldn't be able to reach as far as we did in the context of the climate events at Rio Grande do Sul. Rio Grande do Sul has 497 municipalities. Of those, 469 were supported by the bank with the bank credit lines somehow, be it by suspending debts, by assuring, or by delivering long-term extended credit. And that wouldn't be possible without the support of the cooperative system. It just wouldn't be possible. And I'd like to finish my saying here by saying that the importance of the articulation in the ability of the institutions, just like the banks have in creating the bridge between private sector and the government and listening to them, we had over 150 meetings with over 70 sectorial agencies at Rio Grande do Sul precisely to understand what were the main pain points, the necessities, and how we unlocked credit faster. And on top of all of that, this support, the support from the bank via financial agents and mainly cooperatives. So thank you again, and I'm sorry I need to leave. I have another meeting at the place that's quite distant from here. I think I'm going to be late, but thank you anyway. Thank you, Leonardo, for your answer and for participating in our panel. It's always a pleasure to have somebody from the BNDES here with us. Well, let's move on with the debate. Let me invite Andreas. So we talked about it a little bit, about this relationship and the governance that the cooperative has and the relationship that is closer to the cooperative member, being a producer and entrepreneur. So how's the relations, the connection that is closer to them, and how it helps the foster of a development of including them in the insurance system and including communities that are further from the urban centers that are less penetrated by traditional entities. So I'll speak slower to make sure that you understand me better. I cannot speak Portuguese yet. So I will share the experience of Uruguay, okay? So with all of that being said, I understand that trust is everything. We choose the insurance company that we're going to work with amidst the group of companies that we trust the more. So there is a necessary condition because we know that the existing difference between the premium that is going to be paid by the insurance coverage and the indemnization that is going to be received in case of a claim is still quite large. The producer needs to be able to produce, to continue producing. And in our experience, the trust that has been built throughout the years, the transparency and working in good faith at the contract. The producer spent a week reading the policy to try to see what the trap was. He couldn't believe that we will pay before the deadline. You know, for us, we knew that we had to pay, and we wanted to build relationship because a relationship with the insurance company works by paying claim and paying when we have to do it. Otherwise, the relationship won't build. And the lack of information makes that insurance to be expensive. So the local knowledge and expertise can help model the insurance. And we know the cycle of damage throughout the time. And that information is important, so much so that we have built with the tariffs alongside the technicians and the producers of the cooperatives. Of course, that the producer and the cooperative have their role and the insurer has its role. And by combining all of that, we have a better precision in the case of a adverse and severe effects, and that is very important. So trust is fundamental for a good coverage. And the local knowledge of the producers, the cooperative, and for the territories make the quality of the coverage to be better and to be trustworthy. Thank you, Andres. I would like to link that to what Mateo said, because Mateo was just talking about the role of the cooperative and how the agriculture and livestock cooperatives like Sucro has done a lot of good work for reducing costs, looking at insurance also as a tool and contributing to the overall process that insurance reduce costs, since we have some information like Andres just said. So I'd like to tell us about the future, what's ahead. When we look what's ahead, what type of opportunities and challenges we have so that the cooperatives can develop that role of being a bridge between the relationship of the insurance sector of Brazil contributing to the agriculture and livestock sector. So I see that in Brazil, we still have a regulatory challenge. We are still highly dependable on the state in the agricultural insurance sector. So we're talking about the subventions, the regulation problem, now the opening of the insurance market for the cooperatives. So you see, amidst all of that, it's something that we're still building. Looking through the states, now looking through the products, we will need to more and more to be able to read the risk of each producer individually. I usually say that in a single city, two neighboring producers producing the same type of crop, producing soy, neighbors, the same city, the risks involved could be completely different. You can have an agriculture and a producer that works with regenerative agriculture that uses different types of irrigation, that has no-till farming practices, that uses a different type of land tillage, that works with the water in a way so that the water permeates the soil and leaves at a riverbed that he then recaptures and uses as an irrigation system, or a producer that has an entire system of head and anticipating selling of production that have all the involved mechanisms. So the risk of that agriculture compared to his neighbor that might use a more traditional agriculture can be completely different. And now we still precify the same. So if somebody looks at the city, they might think it's the same city, the same producers, the same risk. So we still don't have the ability of reading risks. That's where the cooperatives come in, because it's only through the technical side of things, people who are involved in the activities of that associated know their activity. I always say that the current world, information is unlimited. We have information of everything. So we need to use that information more and more in order to precify better and to cut costs. The one who has a lesser risk needs to have a lesser premium, needs to pay less because he has a lesser risk. It's obvious. And that will incentivize the other agricultures to develop more and more. In my point of view, by the way, and the point of view of the cooperativism, all the sustainable development goes through adding technology in their activity. The more technology that we have in our activity, the better the economical result, the better the social result, and better would be way better this environmental impact. So the agriculture that uses water better, that can irrigate better, that can sequester carbon, capture carbon, and use that in the roots of their trees, that producer is generated a huge environmental impact, but it's also generated an impact, economic impact that is greater in terms of generating more income. So we need to use technology in our favor more. And when I look ahead for the future, I still think there's still a lot of leeway in the insurance world to use more technologies. Just look at automobile insurances. Sometimes you already get a link from an app or an insurance in which you do the technical assessment of your car. So we have technology for that. So why cannot do that with the agro sector? If I told you we can monitor the tractor as he's going and riding on the field, so why couldn't we have better solutions for the agro sector? We need to have more information to be able to precify better and have specific products. Another important thing is that agriculture now, more than ever, which is important for this regenerative practices, we don't have anything for short term. Everything is long term. We need at least 5 years to build the correct profile for the soil, to recover a preservation area, for you to do the best practice with the water. You need to put oxygen in the soil. You need to capture CO2, use bio inputs. All of that takes time. And everything that takes time needs to be insured. You need to have a guarantee of that in the future. So we need to have those instruments more and more frequent within agro. And here in Brazil, especially in agriculture and cooperativism, we need to base ourselves in other countries. I just seen the example of Uruguay and other models from other countries like in Europe, in which cooperatives in the sector of insurance works better than ours. Ours work, but we work as operators, as brokers in a way. But now, when we change the law, things will change. It will open for more opportunities for us to have more specific products for each necessity of the agro industry. I feel like that's an evolution that is going to happen fast. Thank you, Mateus. That's definitely in the future. And we were talking about public and private partnerships. So, Congress representative, how can we use more technology for the processes? How can a state help, be it from the legislative or the legal house, so we can help the process more, and then we have more acknowledgement that insurance is a strategic tool for the project to advance faster. First of all, don't worry about the rain that is going on. Everybody here is insured, okay? But jokes aside, we need to understand what is the insurance market because most of the time there's still a lack of information. First, because the first insurance that we have in our culture is our vehicle insurance. So we don't have the understanding of how much an insurance is important, be it in the industry or in a commerce, and especially in a culture. So Congress needs to debate, since it's the house of people, to show the importance that the insurance has that is fundamental in the budget of people, in the budget of companies, and of the union. Let me give you an example. I'm sure that if we had a roof collapsing during COP, that part wouldn't be insured, and that would take the budget of the union. That's just an example. I'm not criticizing anything. It's just for you to understand the importance of insurance. When you talk about rural insurance, which is a type of insurance that has a medium to long term, that prices through the crops, lesser rain, more imports and exports, that, like my colleagues were saying, we're seeing a subject that is important. For example, think about milk. When we have more milk and powder getting into the country, the cost of production goes down. How can you have a producer that is investing in better technology? How can you have a producer that is going to use less area to extract and to get that milk? How are we going to have a producer that is going to improve the genetics of that cow if we are open to a market in which overnight the price goes down? So when I'm talking about insurance, and I am an enthusiast in this, and I'm always looking for ways to have insurance, insurance also helps to prevent. An example of a rural producer that's neighboring to another, just like the previous that my colleague said, we can have in the same area a climatic difference, a soil difference, and the agricultural potential of that land different. And for you to imagine a, let's say, 80% sex per hectare production, then becomes 30. That's bad for inflation. It movements the price in the end of the chain. It's bad because that producer won't be able to plant again or start a new crop. And it's bad because that damage is unrecoverable. And where does insurance comes in different from the vehicle insurance? It's because the insurers now are specialized to mitigate risk. So every time that insurance tells a associated or a company or a person that their risk is high, that basically means that that is a warning for the entrepreneur, for the business person, and for the agriculture. We cannot simply use drone if we do not know how to use drone. It's useless to use a tractor of the latest technology if you don't know how to use that tractor, that machine. And the insurer, when it will mitigate risk, it has the possibility of tell you that you're not able yet to do that operation. And how do we connect the environment to insurance in this situation? We today have many degraded areas because of the lack of technology. You can produce more using less area. And by doing that, you have areas that you can use to replant forests, that you can use to try to recover riverbeds, that near the riverbeds you can plant more trees. All of that are mechanisms that needs to come before the risk, because like everything else in Brazil, we copy it without even knowing how to do it. And when it doesn't work, we use soy. When the soy doesn't work, we use corn. Or when another culture doesn't work, we go back to soy or we go to different grains. So you see, insurance is part of that. Here we're talking about the insurance and grains, but there's also sugar that almost lasts for 80 years. Now we have sugar that lasts for 10 years. We still have today the possibility of trees to capture carbon. So we need to have, and this is something I defend a lot that goes alongside COP, having an insurance for the soil. Soil needs to be well treated. It's the soil that captures the water or that consumes less water. Soil is at the center of everything. It's a living being. It pulsates just like our lungs. If our lungs don't have any air, it needs to try to pull more air. And it's just like the soil. A well-treated soil works like that. It's completely different. And insurance works for that. Remember that the vehicle insurance is completely important. But this insurance, the rural insurances, it brings a mitigation of risks that can bring back the capacity of Brazil in going to the next level by regulating price, reducing fraction, and reducing the risks.
Thank you. This is definitely a very important public strategy in our sector, right? And definitely it's a strategy that is very relevant in the National Congress. But so considering the time, we're going to move on to our final remarks. I'm going to start over here and we end up with Mateus. And the final comments are about closing this panel. We talked about the importance of cooperativism in this agricultural process for us to be able to move forward and have a safe procedure, mitigating risks, and looking at the Brazilian production. We learned a lot. Thank you for bringing the international experience. So please, your final comments. Well, I believe that the cooperatives in Brazil are going through a moment. It's, the before and after moment, defining a path. So the trend is towards unions. So when this was created, when insurance was created in 92, many cooperatives in Uruguay worked with savings account and agricultural business, etc. They didn't have a specific insurance cooperative. And Surco means insurance, Uruguaios Cooperativos. So it's it's a cultural identity. It's a kind of business that is different from the rest. You need to learn that when we're talking about insurance, we have to think like insurance companies. So that's why in my opinion, union, if we work together, we're stronger. And this is something that we learn. So insurance is a business that disperses risks, and we need to have capital to face events, transfer events. And in Brazil, it's the same thing as in Uruguay. So you don't have a partner that can place millions of dollars in a very short time. There is a different dynamics for the business. And considering the potential movement of cooperativism in Brazil, you need to give them space. So we have to remove the shirt of the cooperative and put the t-shirt of common good. That's easy to say. After 30 years working on insurance, I can say that it's one of the best challenges I have. Surco has consumption, agricultural cooperatives, but they also have two cooperatives in the region, one from Argentina and one from Puerto Rico. So this common project strengthened us, and I hope that Brazil can also get results in America and around the world. We are available. We are a global organization with local reach. So ICNIF America, whatever you need, we're here. Thank you very much. Thank you. I can see Dr. Andrea here. So we could have a whole panel about this, right? And this is based on union. And that's what we're talking about here, together with the credit cooperatives and those who are trying to look at this opportunity that we have of working in insurance. So it's a good thing we have concrete experience, and we're bringing this to the debate at this moment. So you'll comment about that in the other panel. So now your final comments. First of all, thank you very much for this opportunity to be here. For me, it's a learning experience, but I wanted to leave a very quick message here. In Brazil, we have almost 1/3 of the budget placed in subsidies. And 1/3, which is about 1 trillion reais. And I really wanted us to only take 2 billion and placed it in the rural insurance, and you would see a difference. So that's my message. My message is that we have to value insurance increasingly. And I'm sure that for those who are not from the rural zones, they will understand, having food on your plate, the difference between having insurance and working and having less climatic events. But insurance was part of this, together with the cooperatives, together with whoever made them. So thank you for the lesson. And congratulations to CNseg for such a good debate today. Thank you, and have a good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, statesman. Hopefully we'll be able to thank you for reaching the 2 billion, right? Maybe we'll be able to have this rural insurance stronger. So Mateus is representing the Brazilian cooperatives in this panel and bringing this important message in our sector. Well, I think above all, congratulations for the initiative. I think that forcing us to reflect and to think about relevant. And as I said, it's all a cloud. We are still trying to understand this process, and it's just like the economic agent that is there that needs the insurance. And if the producer has any problems, cooperatives have problems. Yes, that's unavoidable. So congratulations on the topic. It's challenging. I learned a lot as well. The cooperatives, I have no doubt that the cooperatives are between the extreme private initiative and a solidary economy. And it has the possibility of generating income for small and medium-sized cooperatives in the same condition as the big ones. Now, one thing I'd like you to pay attention to, there is the possibility of reducing agricultural insurance 30% this year. So this is something to reflect upon. In spite of everything that we're saying, that it looks good, it's going to grow, it's moving, but coming back as a representative of the real world, seeing this year, agricultural insurance is going to go down in Brazil, especially because of climatic events, because the risk goes up, they leave the sector, and the price goes up. The second point to think about is that there's no way we can have insurance without the state participating, to regulate, to encourage, to defend. So even if private initiatives are pushing this, so why do we have more machines and implements? If you don't have insurance for that, you don't have funding, right? And to have funding, you need to have insurance. And naturally you grow. So since the cooperative is close to the associate, there's less risk, there's less delinquency, and this market becomes developed. So it's something to think about. I suggest you all think about this and how we can reverse this process. Part of it is on the side of the cooperative, part of it is on the side of the state or in the insurance companies. Everybody will have to build an insurance sector that is prosperous over the next few years, like we have in the world. And congratulations on your initiative, and thank you for the opportunity. So that's it. That was the conclusion of the panel. Thank you once again to the panel members. Thank you to CNseg for the opportunity of being here. And then we're going to go on to the next part of the panel. Thank you. So let's take the picture now. Great. All right, so thank you everyone for participating in this panel. And we're going to move to the next topic, the role of cooperativism and the insurance market in climatic disasters. So in this panel, we're going to discuss how cooperativism and the insurance market can act in an integrated manner in the management of risks and climatic disasters, strengthening economic, social, and productive resilience in rural and agro-industrial territories. The panel will talk about practical experience and success cases, as well as exploring challenges in the access to insurance, the role of public policies, and opportunities for innovation and cooperation between the sectors. So to compose our panel, I'm going to invite Vinicius Brandi, Subsecretary of Microeconomic Reforms and Financial Regulation from the Ministry of Finance. Ivo Kanashiro, Superintendent of Sustainability from MAPFRE. Ivo, where are you? Alexandre Barbosa, Executive Director of Strategy, Sustainability, Administration, and Finance from CNseg. Everybody ran away from the rain, right? It's better to stay inside. And I'm going to call one person who is here, Angelica Carlini, lawyer and consultant of the area of insurance rights. Okay, my dear. Yeah, they're here. They're here. Ivo Kanashiro, please. And Alexandre Barbosa, the Executive Director of Strategy, Sustainability, Administration, and Finance from CNseg. Angelica, over to you. Good afternoon, everyone. I confess that I have no words to talk about how happy I am to be here watching this historical event in a historical environment, which is Casa do Seguro and COP30, that definitely places Brazilian insurance in the world. So thank you very much to Roberto for this opportunity. I'd like to thank Diogo for the generosity of the invitation. I would like to thank Gustavo, everybody who worked here. I'd like to thank my colleagues here in the panel for this wonderful opportunity. So cooperativism and insurance, they were born together. They were separated in paternity because, there was some little problem, but they were born together. Cooperativism and cooperation. And insurance, it's definitely part of cooperativism. So it's the little bit that we place so that some who need it will receive it, will receive the result of the risks, the materialized risks. So unfortunately, risks are it's damage, and that others that only contributed and they're not going to receive any indemnities. They're also very happy because the objective, nobody has the objective is to receive indemnity when they hire insurance. Nobody hires life insurance so they don't have it, and nobody hires health insurance to get sick, or the insurance for machines in the agricultural sector to see their machines burned, for example. That's why cooperativism and insurance start this year of 2025. They start a trajectory that definitely will be historical and very successful, because if there's something that we in the insurance market and we in cooperativism know how to do, is to start a dialogue to try and find the best solutions. So this is the purpose. This is the vibration that we have, and a lot of emotion. That's how we're going to start our panel today. So to begin with, I'm going to give the floor to Vinicius Brandt so that he can start his initial remarks. Thank you, Vinicius. Thank you, Angélica. I wanted to start by thanking CNseg for the invitation, congratulating them on this initiative. For me, I'm very happy to be here and learning with everyone and continuing this very important debate, and also having the opportunity of sharing a little bit of the initiatives that we have coordinated in the Secretary of Economical Reform, in the Ministry of Finance, and to talk about two sectors of the economy that are extremely important, and they show that the strength of the collective, as Professor Angélica has, the strength of everyone, it brings gains for everybody in the sector, the cooperative sector, for all the people involved. It shows that the union between small producers, small entrepreneurs, they can get organized in a way to share information and technology, to share governance and risks. And this ends up potentializing gains in efficiency, huge gains in efficiency. And in terms of insurance, we have mutualism that it promotes. So this ends up bringing the sharing of risks and better prevention, better risk management. And in the Ministry of Finance, I'm in an area about projects for financial regulation, and I focus on development, structural long-term projects that look at economic development with sustainability, social inclusion, social justice. And we noted that this agenda in the insurance sector and cooperativism, it's extremely connected with these objectives, and especially in the topic of sustainability. On the topic of sustainability, we see several initiatives. You see studies that show that groups that are organized as cooperatives, they end up finding it easier to adopt sustainable practices. They are more successful in the adoption of these practices, and the insurance sector as well. So this is where it acts the most, where it's able to get to. It brings gains in terms of risk management and mitigation of risks and greater resilience according to the climatic situation, in line with what statesman Fernando Monteiro said. So we have to be prepared to adapt to these climatic changes and to strengthen the resilience of the production activity, the resilience of society. And in the Ministry of Finance, we have been conducting a very long agenda about this topic, and then talking a little bit more about my area, which is about financial regulation. So we started 2023 with an agenda for reforming the agenda, and we had 17 working groups, and out of the 17, 7 were for the insurance sector, so several initiatives in social security, in terms of rural insurance and life insurance, and very specific projects that we've been working on. And we have a perception that the insurance sector is the one that has the potential for growth. So if you compare all of the segments in the financial market, many of them over the last decades had a growth boom because of several factors. And we get some episodes. We had the fiduciary alienation, that was a new technology, and the leap in terms of representativeness in credit, according to the GDP, and the capital market as well. It had a period where it was deregulated, and that was quite long. And this allowed several companies, small and medium companies, to access capital markets at lower cost and more easily. And this also generated a boom. And in the insurance market, we can see that it's a market that is developing and it has a huge potential for development. And that's why we see this very enthusiastically. We see this whole agenda that has been discussed in the area of insurance. A lot of it is being promoted and coordinated by CNseg. And in the topic of sustainability specifically, there are several agendas. So I think the last initiative that culminated in the addition of Resolution CSP 485, talking about rural insurance and trying to improve the regulation of rural insurance so that it would be able to move and develop and become even stronger with sustainable practices and look very much. And you're touching on a very important point. Insurance has to be there when the risk is materialized, but especially to bring all of the national experience in prevention and management of risk, because there is expertise about this, there's knowledge, and the sector is very mature in terms of prevention and management of risks. So now I would like to give the floor to Ivo Kanashiro. And he wasn't here when he was called, but that's okay. We're not going to say you were absent. Sorry about the delay, because we were having a very interesting conversation, Alexandre and I, exactly about the issue of mutualism and cooperativism. They are partners, and I would like to, first of all, thank you for the invitation on behalf of MAFRE. We are very proud to participate in a panel like this one. And I would like to open saying that we have to understand that insurance, in fact, can be the main mechanism of adaptation for climatic changes, the main financial mechanism. When we begin to understand that as a way of protection and continuity of the business, so when we talk about the agricultural, the rural center, and the dissemination or the growth in this sector, I mean, that's important. And this is a path that we have to follow to adapt to these climatic changes. So without insurance, there is no climatic change adaptation. That's something we have to study. But for us to actually be this vector, we have to expand this expansion that we've tried to carry out, and democratization as well. So I think this is a very important issue. And I'm also going to say that when we bring this democratization in the use of insurance, we bring exactly what you said, risk management, because that's the expertise that insurance companies have. Insurance companies, what they really know how to do is analyze risk. And that's why we can bring this to the end customer, because to bring this expertise and the techniques, and now talking about data and information and artificial intelligence, and it's coming in to help us even more in this. I can actually bring protection to the end customer as well as information, quality information, and translating this into risk management. So being together with cooperatives and being able to disseminate the information and democratize access, it's good for all of the sectors, and especially the winners are the end customers who are able to understand their business, and they're able to understand all the risks involved in their business, and then bring their management about this, their knowledge about this. So we make this whole change. And I think the sector we're talking about, the culture of insurance and bringing a society and understanding insurance as a financial protection mechanism, I think everybody will gain with that. It's the famous win-win situation. We develop the sector, we're able to bring the essence of insurance, which is protection, and we can increasingly expand the market, right? And bring what we want, which is exactly a society, and a transition towards a low carbon emission. So I'm going to say nobody goes anywhere alone. That does not exist. Cooperativism, mutualism, it's all together. So this translates the issue. We can materialize it in a concrete manner, what insurance is and what protection is. Thank you very much, Ivo. And highlighting what you said, highlighting the importance that this group has in stability and also inclusion. So it's a way of including the whole of society and the devices that make it more deserving and living this phenomenon that we look for, which is social peace. So maybe lately in Brazil, we have very few phenomena spreading out at the speed that cooperativism has been doing, credit cooperativism. And that's why we have the honor of receiving here today Alexandre Barbosa, and I'm going to give you the floor so that you can tell us a little bit about the spectacular phenomenon and how this has gained life over the last few years. Thank you. Thank you, Angélica. Thank you for CNseg for the opportunity, for the invitation, representing Sicredi, and the colleagues from Sicredi are also here, the colleagues from the cooperatives. Thank you very much for allowing me to talk a little bit about this work, the work that we have been doing in terms of knowledge. So it was in 2010. Looks like it was yesterday, right? We had maybe 17 or 18 billion assets, and now it's 433 billion assets. So it's definitely exponential growth, and we're going to have, go to the next year with over 2 million associates, 3,000 agencies all over Brazil and all the states. So it's very significant growth. And if we look at other countries, we can see that the potential, in spite of all the growth, the potential is still high. And we have seen that even with the digital facilities, and we invest a lot on that, and we continue to invest and will continue investing.
What we value the most when we're questioning our associated and non-associated, and recently we had a survey done looking at our strategic planning, is the relation, trust, and how close we all are. And that is something that, for example, our first cooperative is from 1902. So it's one of the oldest private institutions, the oldest one in the country. And the logic is that bringing people closing, integrate everyone, mutualism, as it was previously mentioned, and insurance has a key role in all of this. The insurance is what put people at ease during harsher and difficult times, because if a person is uninsured, he would be experiencing way harder all these situations. And what we've seen as well is that in a complex and high volatile economy such as we have with elevated interest rates, Also, all of that also is for the financial institutions. It's important to diversify, and non-credit products are fundamental, especially for the growth. And insurance is a big example of that and how it can evolve, because throughout this cycle, as we have going now at a high level of indebtedness and credit is growing at a slower pace. So these are the type of non-financial products that in most scenarios help financial institutions, and that of course are going to help the associates in return, because that's what we mean when we're talking about insurance. We had an experience in Rio Grande do Sul that was very difficult. The administrative center that supports all the cooperatives at CNseg is located in Porto Alegre. We have a bank there, a cooperative, a insurance broker, and in Porto Alegre we suffered a lot in May of last year because of what happened. We had a lot of intense hard work overnight. A day or two after what happened, the civil defense asked us if we could stay there because everything was completely flooded. Their headquarters was flooded. They asked us in the morning, in the afternoon. They already came to stay with us. They left, of course, but to this day we call that room the room of the civil defense, because it's something very symbolic for us to be able to hosting them there. And they are the ones supporting people directly, and we were helping them when they called civil defense in order to help them, because people were stuck in their roofs asking for a boat to go get them. So it was a very intense work. Me, personally, through WhatsApp groups, I contacted people that had boats to go rescue people. I had employees and associates that were at risk, and we did what cooperative does it very well, which is basically to connect people. In this case, we found a boat to rescue someone because the water was rising. So a lot of intense work happened last year, but it helped all the insured ones. Whatever type of asset they had insured, the situation was easier for them. And it was a work that was also in joint action with the insurers in simplifying processes and create a specific place that was faster to deal with the insurers, especially because of insurers. So this was a type of work and partnership that was very agile, comprehensive as well, because of the insurance, because they knew that we couldn't basically do and follow the same things in a situation like that, treat it like it was just a common thing. So all that joint work minimized, let's say, was able to mitigate as best as we could for a lot of people who were insured. Unfortunately, a lot of people had to go through that type of pain, again, unfortunately. But through these moments, do we appreciate more the necessity of being able to protect. So there's also a cultural advancement in Brazil that is necessary in order for us to increase penetration of insurances. If we consider other countries like United States, and if we consider other countries, we will see there is still a lot more to advance. Just like the cooperativism has advanced a lot, insurance has grown, but there's also a lot of leeway there for growth. And again, it's a type of win-win situation, like Ivo just said. It's a win-win for the associated, for the cooperative, because if it's better for the associated, it's better for the cooperative and the society as a whole. So I'd just like to say the importance of us to keep going. And despite of all the pain, it's important to look at those moments and know that, unfortunately, although we have this climate transition work behind it, it's still necessary, because most likely when we look ahead, all these situations and these climate extreme events in Paraná, we just had an issue. In Rio Bonito do Iguaçu, we just seen a tornado that, if it was 5 kilometers from there, it wouldn't reach anyone. But unfortunately, it happened right in the middle of that city, right in the center of the city, and it pretty much devastated the entire city. Schools, companies, homes, almost everything was destroyed. That's where cooperative shines in looking for solutions, just like we did in Rio Grande do Sul, helping them get the donations they needed. Cooperative for different regions here also donated resources for Rio Grande do Sul, donations that happened by donating goods or money, and CNseg doubled the money for them. It was almost 100 million reals that went through CNseg in order to help the communities. So again, it's good in moments like this in which we are relatively safe to protect ourselves, to think about protecting ourselves better in the future so we don't experience those climate events like that. You know, it's amazing to hear from you how you acted in the South and the cooperatives acted during that difficult moment that the state of Rio Grande do Sul experienced last year. And from all of that, I think there's definitely is a lesson in the silver lining of what we could be doing together and in other places of Brazil, because that's are the places that cooperatives reach, and that's where insurance needs to be. Now, I will ask questions. I love to ask questions, and I love people struggling to answer my questions. I'm really excited because this is what I do. I'm a teacher, right? So I love asking questions. So, Vinicius, by the way, yeah, we are approaching our final terms at my school. So, Vinicius, how are you incentivizing the private sector to invest in resilient infrastructure? So, Angelica, we have a very clear vision that it is impossible to have a strategic planning and thinking towards adaptation, resilience, and prevention towards climate change without the overbearing presence of the insurance sector. And this is not only about fiscal or you having other funds in order to be able to pay for the losses. The idea is what we're talking right now, and it has to do even with the theme here of the House of Insurance, that is for you to attract the private sector to seek for solutions. Look for solutions for mitigating risks and to have more resilient infrastructures, and you trying to help managing risks more efficiently. So I think all of that is pretty clear for us right now. And that, considering the situation that we have right now in Brazil, and many people here have mentioned the protection gap that is quite high, the first thing that we need to think of is we need to expand the use of insurance. We need to increase the culture of having insurance and in using it in the economy as a whole. That's the first big challenge. Get the practice of sustainability and sustainable development through the capillarity of the financial market as a whole, and especially with the insurers. That is not an easy challenge. We have been discussing this agenda for quite some time. And one of the initiatives, by the way, that we have been just talking about the whole potential that the cooperative sector has to drive forward the livelihood of people, sectors. And one of the initiatives that were created by the Ministry of Economics in Brazil is the synergies of both sectors. So the federal government has just presented in 2023 the complementary bill number 101, thus opening the debate with the society about an extremely important subject, that is to bring closer the cooperative sector, bring it closer to the insurance sector. That was a project that was presented. We then started debating about that again. And With that, I would like to thank all the team from OCB and CNseg, because without your support and partnership, we wouldn't be able to build a solution like we did. So it was a very effective contribution from all the technical team from OCB, the technical team of CNseg, and many other sectors from cooperativism that participated. So we had the first draft created, and this year it was included in one of the main projects, which is by the way, the year of international cooperatives, right? And we have this expectation of having the ability to be able to foster this culture of insurance in the country. And through that, you can take social inclusion and protection and take that capillarity for more people. And insurance is something that generates economic efficiency, but it's also important for those situations of more vulnerability. People that sometimes loses everything in a situation like that. They do not have the financial means to recover what they lost or to rebuild their home or acquire another car. So there is an aspect of social justice that is quite important. And in this agenda of fostering this culture of insurance and spreading and raising the awareness of the role of insurance in the economy, there are two axes that we have been discussing quite a lot with the National Congress and the private sectors and all the other agents that are important in this debate. One is about the rural insurance. We need to find a solution for that. We just mentioned about those bills before, and we are 15 years behind. This is a bill that will try to work around a bill from 2010 that never moved forward. So we understand that issue. We have been trying to create a mechanism in which we're able to create conditions for the public sector to dialogue with the private sector, and each can bring their own experience to the issue so we can think in a way of complementing each other. I think we're slowly getting there. There is the budget discussion that is important because we understand the argument that for the sector to be able to invest in innovation and coverage, it needs predictability. And on the other hand, we have all the challenges that are already known for the fiscal area. So we need to look for a balance between these two things. So that's an agenda that it will move forward. We have a lot of amazing people behind it, and we're all very well aligned with the same goal. And another theme here that I think it's important is the guaranteed insurance, precisely to help us think about in terms of infrastructure and to try to think on, there's this whole discussion that Brazil has a high volume of construction works that were stopped. And by talking about that, it brought us a new contract information that help us to speed the indemnization and to speed finishing public works. But we need also to think about the role of surety, the surety bond, and thinking about the resiliencies of our infrastructures. That could be in the area of health, education, or transportation. So we need to think of how the insurance sector can help not only to make indemnization possible in paying a claim faster to cover a loss, but also to build this resilience that we needed so badly. And for this more technical aspect, the culture of insurance needs to be fostered. And I think we're getting there. So just to briefly conclude, I think we are a bit ahead of the awareness phase of it, of the engagement area. We're beyond that. We're already seeing a lot of initiatives and having a more technical debate ongoing. A technical corporation, for example, that CNseg built with the people from PRI and investments, a work group that SUSEP is coordinated about the catastrophe insurance. So we already went above the planning step, and now we're thinking about how we implemented it, and we built our contracts. So now we need to think hardly about a lot of these issues, bring the public power that most of the time has the lesser technical capability in bringing the expertise, so we can try to implement things and put forth all these actions and solutions. I think he passed the question, right? Thank you so much for your answer, Vinicius. So, Ivo, at Mafre, we know that has a long history in working towards sustainability. I'm living proof of that. I had the opportunity in studying for 15 years at Fundación in Madrid because of you, who opened your doors for me, and we are very, very proud of the work that Mafre does. How is the cooperation between insurance and cooperatives and governments in your point of view? And how can that transform the rural insurance into an adaptation for climate tool at a large scale? And remember that we need to deliver this panel in 27 minutes, okay? Hopefully I'll pass the test too. So yeah, I think it's important to understand the complexity and the role of each one of us when we talk about our common and shared responsibility. That's an important concept. So for the insurer, when we're able to bring the expertise of risk, data, information management, and how we can bring the mitigation for risks and to link that to the capacity of cooperatives, because cooperatives can understand the reality of the client that is more distant from the understanding. So by bringing all that information, we can do better underwriting, understand the risk better, not only a better underwriting, but a better protection that is effectively connected to all of that. And having the government bringing public policies that incentivize insurance as a protection mechanism. So if we have all those pillars working together and we integrate, that's the path forward. Again, I think that path has already been created. Now we just need to evolve and move on that. Of course, that needs to be happening at a faster pace because of the extreme climate events that we're experiencing. So once we start understanding each role and how we can get there and how we can contribute, I think that's the main thing of the scenario here. That's the path forward, and I'm sure that if everybody gets together and try to deliver or materialize their solutions somehow, it will be key. If this is the cup of implementation, this is what we need to talk about. And all the partnerships, the business partnerships, the technical partnerships, all of that are going to be able to bring forward this solution. I truly believe that, and Mafre believes that, because that's where we were born from, right? A long time ago through mutualism, in which the agricultural producers got together in order to bring a solution forth. So it's all about going back to the basics, to the essence. We have been going through this road for over 90 years, and when we look back and we can identify ourselves and what happened, sometimes it seems simpler and more basic than we will see amidst all this complexity. But again, that's the solution in our point of view. Get everybody on the same page, talk, and bring an adequate solution for the market and the sector. And going along those lines, thank you, Ivo. You also passed the test, don't worry. And yeah, going along those lines, the insurance sector in Brazil has been showing a lot of maturity, because besides what Vinicius just brilliantly said and Alexandre as well said, this intense debate in approving the complementary bill 213, the sector actively participated in the debate to build the new regulatory framework of insurance that is going to be start working now in December. So we are definitely more mature for that dialogue. We're ready for that dialogue. Now it's all about transforming that conversation into good actions. So, Alexandre, you when you told us about the actions of cooperatives and Sicredi specifically during the tragedy in 2024 in Rio Grande do Sul, we would like you to tell us how you understand that cooperativism can strengthen its capacity in response in recovering in face of such disasters, because we know it's going to happen again, just like the congressman just said before. And it's not about denying it, it's about understanding it and doing something about it. And we barely finished about talking Rio Grande do Sul, already have this tragedy that happened in Paraná and many other smaller ones that are ongoing right now that we sometimes don't even see in the news. So how do you see all of that in face of new disasters? I see that there isn't a one fit all solution here, but a thing that is very important to mention is we need to have more data and more information. That is fundamental in order for us to have a better risk management. All of us here, and especially after everything we learned after what happened in Rio Grande do Sul, we have worked quite hard in order to map risks and many different risks. We have over 15 maps for different risks in 16 million risk points in the entire country. Millions. It's a pixel of 30 by 30 kilometers in the map. So we worked with very different risks that we have. It could be forest fires, extreme winds, floods, all of that we did in order to identify where are the greater and bigger risks according to the risk factor that we have information for. So that's an example of a advancement that we have had. Today, we mapped around 16 million assets of our associates, assets like vehicles, homes, and etc., where they are located and at what risk they are submitted to. So this was a work that we did with a consulting agency precisely for us to have more information on how to act. To get an example for the insurance sector, we're trying to improve the arguments that we use, our sales pitch. And I usually say that when we're talking about cooperativism, this is not just a sale for the sake of selling something. We believe in the logic that is embedded into the activity of a cooperative, and we need to have technical data in order for us to be able to change that mentality, because we need to have a better scalability of the insurance. It's through that scalability that we can reduce the price of insurance, thus creating a positive spiral, because as we increase scale, we reduce the price of insurance, and then it starts to become more and more accessible to more and more people. So data is one of the centerpieces here. It doesn't need to be it's not only about data, but it's extremely necessary in order for us to have a better vision of risks. The other work that has a lot to do with what we are discussing here at COP is how we act in face of all this climate change, how we can have sustainable finances, how we can finance, and again, an example, if we get an example, the north area like in Pará, and other regions in the Amazon actually generate income with harvests and crops that keep the forest alive. So we can get to that win-win situation that we understand that exists also in the insurance sector, and more environmentally connected here, and that helps us with our transition. I'm sure all the different cooperative systems have good examples for that. We were at the Green Zone with our colleagues from OCB, and everyone talked about their own personal cases related to cocoa and acai and coffee. And we have a lot of good examples that basically try to generate more value in their production, try to keep people in their region working and protecting people. All of that has to do with cooperativism. It's all about local development and trying to improve the quality of life of associated in the territory that he or she occupies. So, to summarize, there isn't one single way to deal with all of that, but we need data and information in order for us to know the risks better, so we can sell insurance at a lower price, so we can help the awareness of it, generating scalability, scaling more, and we need to work additionally in the sustainability of practices so we can, in the future, mitigate global warming and climate change that we have been experiencing. So again, there are several ways. I just mentioned a couple, and we really believe it's all connected with the role of cooperativism. When you talk about data, is he approved? Yeah, did he pass the test? Yeah, he's passed the test. Even though I was late, yes, even though you were late, you passed the test. Don't worry about it. So when you talk about data, you're talking about what the underwriting policies makers wants to hear, right? But there's another thing that you mentioned that I really, really like, that is to think about everything that the cooperativism can do in spreading the financial education and education about insurance. I love that because we truly have a deficit in that for that subject, and we need to grow, and we can only do that with the help of cooperativism. Since I passed the test, can I say something else? Sorry, yes, let me just add one quick thing, sorry, because I think it's important. We also have a work that we have started recently on financial education, in which we try to assess the level of the financial education that we have for our associates. And one of the aspects to measure all of that is when we see what they think about insurance. We have our associates that have a lower income, and we try to work on them to evolve their learning. And the insurance is one of those products that complement the financial education whenever possible. Of course, it goes according to their own capacity, right? But insurance is a very important product when we're talking about financial education. The whole thing about awareness that I mentioned before might be the cherry on top when they're talking about awareness and raising awareness about going towards a more sustainable business practices, not only sustainable practice, but economically sustainable as well. I love that. Thank you so much. Now for your final comments, starting for you, Vinicius Brandt. Please, Vinicius.
So thank you once again. I'm very happy to be here with Yves, Alexandre, Professor Angelica. I am very enthusiastic about cooperativism, and I was listening to Mateus talking about Delicitos, and I remember that 20 years ago I was in Bebedouro to do a training and seeing Feltrin and my experience in central bank, and I saw the development of this sector and how that brought greater competitiveness and innovation. You were talking about financial education, this thing about financial inclusion and citizenship. It's extremely important so that the citizens can actually integrate in a full manner in the economy and get social and economic growth. So the aspect of cooperativism, I'm very enthusiastic about it. And this link with the insurance sector, I see this very enthusiastically as well, especially in this specific topic of sustainability. Because if we look at 5 years ago, we didn't have regulation about insurance that defined best practices for you to be able to integrate risk management of the environment, climatic, social, with an integrated framework of the insurance companies for risk managed, so subscription and risk and market. We didn't have this 5 years ago. You didn't have regulation of rural insurance, which is our climatic insurance here in Brazil, right? That was fully aligned and that incorporated all of the learning of 15 years that the rural credit sector learned about insurance. So if we look at 5 years ago, we did not have an instrument, the instrument that is used around the world, the main instrument for the coverage of risk against catastrophes. So 14,430, this is the law that was decreed creating the law for insurance, which is a way of packaging the insurance risks in a society with a specific purpose, right? An insurance company with a specific purpose, and transfer this risk to capital markets. So you create the conditions to be able to increase the coverage. And within the context where we need to close this coverage gap, which is very high, and there are catastrophic risks that are emerging increasingly. So we're not only talking about climatic risks, we're talking about health issues, the pandemic, cybernetic risks. So there are several issues that we need to look at. And we didn't have this instrument. Today, we already have a legal basis. We have one issued, and there's a lot of debate on top of this instrument for you to learn about it, for you to know the legal aspects, test the instrument, and society is going to have available another tool to be able to gain efficiency in this risk sharing and mitigation of risks. So 5 years ago, we didn't have the most efficient way of covering climatic risks. And this is very common in other jurisdictions. It was the parametrium insurance. So they said Brazil could not have that. So I think we're still trying to get convinced. I think it's not a simple instrument. I think you have to develop the technology, and we can see in these panels over here, we can see the sophistication in terms of that. We're very advanced, but you need to have the parametric insurance so that you can have the greatest correlation between the parameters that are used as triggers in the organizations and also with the actual damage that can potentialize any event, any claim. But that's it. And I see this very enthusiastically, this whole agenda here, and I'm absolutely sure that we're going to not only use it in a full and effective manner, all these ideas that we have built up to now, and we're also going to have in this huge debate, we have very qualified people here, so we're always going to come up with more ideas and try to find more solutions for these problems. Thank you everyone. Thank you very much, Vinicius, for your very optimistic message. Ivo, your final comments, please. I am optimistic by nature, and we're talking a lot about the future. So what is the future of insurance? I think the future is well defined. In regulatory terms, we already know what the risks are. In sustainability and the circular economy, we know what the sustainable products are. So we also have the risk and the opportunity, and we're going to continue on to a brilliant future that is more inclusive and that also brings education as a pillar. So financial education, education in general. And when we look at this future and the horizon of the sector and that the insurance market has, we have to be very happy about it. COP30 is here, Casa do Seguro is here, bringing this vector in the agenda of the sector. And the insurance market in Brazil it can only grow. And it can grow with quality, with resilience, which is what we're looking for. And insurance is bringing all of this as well and bringing a purpose. I think without a purpose for a more positive future, also socially more equal, that considers the environmental issues, that could be a protection and adaptation to these climatic changes. It makes me very happy to be here, very happy to be going through what we're seeing here in Casa do Seguro today, and I feel very optimistic about it. And I think this is the big message that we can bring. We are evolving, and we're evolving with big steps and with quality as well. Thank you very much, Ivo. Alexandre, my dear, your final comments, please. Well, Ivo talked about the purpose. I think that's very important. So the purpose of CNseg is to bring a more prosperous society, to build it together. And it's similar to the other panel that talked about cooperativism and bringing a better world. So all the work that has been done by CNseg and by the other cooperatives, by OCD, all of this work that has been done, but that needs to be sustainable. And insurance is part of all this. So what do we do when we don't have a situation just like many that we had that have been happening increasingly? So insurance is part of it so that it can be sustainable over time. So the message here is for us to, I think that over here, whoever is in Casa do Seguro, we're already preaching to the choir, right? But I hope we can talk more about this topic because we need to change the mindset and have 2 or 3 better years, and the fourth we don't need insurance anymore. That's what people are thinking, so they forget about it because they think it's an added cost. And when there is a loss, to get back later is very complicated. So this is something that we have to consider as part of the business. And we have to increase this scale. That's a great challenge. And the cooperatives are here to try and understand who's there, right? Who is there, as we say at the edge. But for those who are closer to the members, creating products that make sense and in partnerships. And we have several partners. It's always interesting to thank CNseg for the opportunity. Would like to thank the partners who help. And in the previous panel, we had BNDES that was extremely important. And one of the things that was commented on in the previous panel was about identifying the blemish where the water came to. It was very complex, but it was necessary for us to be able to act so that the resources from BNDES could get there, because we actually passed on the financial part in Rio Grande do Sul. So BNDES has been helping cooperatives. The central bank that has the pillar of inclusion for the cooperatives, because as Clara said before, where many people are not. So I think we have very partners for insurance companies and the opportunity of cooperativism in this area as well. And there are several paths we're already working on with OCD, and I think there's a horizon. We're all very optimistic. I came from the risk area, so I'm cautiously optimistic, okay? I would definitely do the insurance, but I think there's a lot coming up, and there are many opportunities for us to take advantage of and to support more members, because we want to increase cooperativism, but it has to be in a sustainable manner, and I'm part of it. Insurance is part of it. Thank you, Alexandre. I would like to close by saying that I spent 41 years of my life, the last 41 years of my life, working and studying about insurance. Working and studying and giving classes about insurance. And I thought I would never be able to have any other passion after so long, because, the marriage was consolidated until I met cooperativism and I learned about OCD. So I'm very happy apparently. Not having two husbands, that's not what I'm saying, but it's two passions that complement each other very deeply in benefit of solidarity and in benefit of companionship and the benefit of not leaving anybody behind. That's what we're starting to build here together. Cooperativism, the government, the institutions, the insurance companies, the societies. I invite all of you to be part of this story. Thank you very much and see you next time. Thank you, Angelica. Thank you to the members of the panel. Let us now take a picture, and I'm just going to give you some information because today in our cocktail, we have ingredients brought by the cooperatives. So I would like to thank Vitimarzo, Aurora, Ropeja, Potriel, Cati, Coates, Dedo de Gente, Reca, and Cacau Whey, who brought some ingredients that we're going to try out and taste in our cocktail. I also like to thank Allianz, Axel, BB Seguros, Bradesco, Caixa Seguridade, Mapfre, Marsh McLennan, and Porto Prudential, Porto and Tokyo Marine. And remember, all these presentations are available in our YouTube channel. So take advantage of tonight, and tomorrow we have more. See you.